Chapter 6. A Night of Voodoo. The devil was on a mission. Although I had been a practicing warlock for nearly 10 years now, it was time to go deeper. Unseen forces pulled me into new levels of evil I had only heard about previously. Voices talked in my head, and my waking and dreaming hours blurred with strange visions. Satan was reminding me that I had a contract to fulfill and I belonged to him. One night I fell asleep and felt myself pulled into a bizarre dream. It seemed more real than my waking reality, so real I got sucked into the dream and didn't know whether I was dreaming or actually there at that very moment. I woke up in a cold sweat, jumped out of bed, and looked around the room, my breath coming in gasps. Nothing was there. I glanced across the room and saw my brother George asleep in his bed. Outside, the familiar nighttime Bronx sounds filtered through the dingy window panes. Deciding it was just a nightmare, I crawled back under the covers and soon fell asleep. This time I found myself by the ocean, and I knew that Madre Agua, the spirit that rules the ocean, was talking to me by the edge of the water. I could hear the waves rush into shore and then whoosh back out to sea. Overhead, the sky was lit by a million twinkling stars. When she spoke, I heard her voice resonating in my spirit. I am your mother in the religion. I am the one who will guard you and protect you. You need to step out and bring people to the religion so you can have your own village of people. You have been chosen and called for this. Madre Agua stood tall and serene against the crystal blue water, dressed in a white gown that was transparent and flowed far below where her feet should have been as she floated above the ground. She wore a necklace around her neck made out of seashells, and her long black hair flowed in the wind, framing her angelic face. But despite her beauty, I could feel that she was fearless and very dangerous. Thank you for the blessing, thank you for revealing yourself to me, I stammered. I will do my very all to accomplish what I was called to do. Instantly I woke up, startled once again from the strange, vivid dream, not knowing where I was for a moment and trying to gather my thoughts. When my eyes settled on the familiar furniture of my bedroom, I realized something curious. Though I was at home in my bed, I could still smell the ocean brine. It was so real. Pulled back into sleep again, this time I woke up high on a mountain in the deepest part of the forest. Towering trees surrounded me on all sides, and I felt the spongy forest floor beneath my feet. Right in front of me, between two trees, stood a big Indian chief spirit, maybe 9 or 10 feet tall. As I looked at him, I knew it was Tawada, my main protective spirit, the one who threw the beaded necklace out of the sky for me to wear when I was 9 years old. "Mi padre," I said at once, awed by his presence. "What is this all about?" The tall spirit gazed at me for a few seconds before he spoke. "You have been called to the world of spiritualism, and I'm the one who is going to guide you where no other human being has walked before. You will have my powers to tell people all about their lives, their destinies, and their purpose. It is time to get started." Burning flesh. Fueled by the strange but powerful dreams, I started attending even more occult gatherings, including parties at the centros to honor the demons who gave us our powers. These festive celebrations resembled birthday parties, except there was nothing innocent about them. What went on in these gatherings was pure evil. One of the most demonic initiations used by Espiritismo was the cigar burning. One Friday evening after midnight, Aunt Maria got demon-possessed by a spirit who called herself the mother of Haiti, the principality that guards Haiti. Speaking through my aunt, the demon spirit requested dark rum and a cigar. Somebody brought the liquor to her in a coconut shell, and I watched as my aunt lit the cigar and puffed on it until the coal turned red hot. Her eyes dark with purpose, Aunt Maria called 3 of us to the front, including me. Speaking in her demonic language, she said, "We're going to see tonight who truly belongs to us, and this ceremony will determine that." The cigar kept turning redder and redder. The other 2, a man and an older woman, went first. The man was told to lift up the back of his shirt. As he kneeled on the floor in front of my aunt, she plunged the lit cigar into the bare skin on his back. He screamed like someone trapped in hell as she branded him in different parts of his back. Finally, he passed out. Quivering with fear, the woman came forward next. Aunt Maria commanded her to close her eyes and extend her arm. When my aunt plunged the cigar into the woman's wrist, she too screamed and fainted. At last she approached me and told me to hold out my arm and close my eyes. As I stuck out my arm, I felt the heat of the cigar approaching my skin like a flaming torch. She pressed the red-hot coal into my arm and held it there, searing my flesh. I locked my teeth and squeezed my eyes shut tight, allowing the cigar to remain on my skin, because I knew I was called to do this. I overcame the pain and the smell of my own burning flesh, and that night I knew I was one of them. "John," Aunt Maria called as I started to head for home later that night. She gestured for me to step into the hallway apart from the others. "There's a secret meeting Monday night, and I want you to be a part of it," she said, her voice lowered. "Only the proven ones can be there, and tonight you proved yourself." "What's the meeting about?" "This is for high-ranked mediums in the religion, and we're gathering to map out the coming year, to find out which principalities are going to run which regions. We're also going to punish those that dared to come against us," she said, a devilish smile painted across her face. I knew it was time for war. I went about my business over the next few days in high expectations for what Monday night would bring. We gathered at Aunt Maria's house in the basement. Glancing around the candlelit room, I realized I was standing among a select group of mediums who had ominous powers. The meeting's purpose: to settle the score and counterattack our enemies, a group of people who wanted to make a name for themselves and tried to do witchcraft on one of our people. But we caught it, and it was time to teach them a lesson. Earlier that day my aunt had purchased a dozen dark-colored roosters for the purpose of sacrificing. We needed their blood to do the witchcraft. That night, we all gathered together prepared to do war. As the conga players started beating the drums near the front of the gathering, the atmosphere was set and I felt the spirits of Espiritismo enter the room to receive the sacrifices. The presence grew heavy, thick darkness hovered over the basement as the smell of cigars and rum perfumed the air. The hair on my arms and the back of my neck stood up as I felt shadows passing by. We chanted as the conga players beat the drums harder. Some sang, some danced to the demons, others lit up cigars and blew smoke, while still others sprayed rum on the four corners of the basement floor, with the symbols of Espiritismo in the center of it. Every now and then a small explosion lit the room as somebody poured alcohol on the concrete floor and threw a burning match on it. In time we felt hell arrive in that basement. Even the roosters, squawking from their cages, knew that evil danced in the air. You could see terror in their eyes, as if they knew they were going to die. As the music played, the energy in the room got heavier and heavier, and I knew that in just a matter of days our enemies would pay. Aunt Maria distributed the voodoo recipe of what we needed to do to chasten those who betrayed us. I had a taste for blood that night. My heart was pumping fast, and my knife was sharp, ready to behead a few roosters. I was excited to be one of those chosen to kill the roosters. Grabbing one after another by its feet, I plunged the knife into the roosters' necks and drained their blood. When I was done, claws and feet and beheaded necks were scattered all over the basement floor. The demons cackled with delight through the mediums who lent them their bodies for the ritual, their demonic laughter mingling with the screams of the birds. Blood dripped from my hands, and if I'd had the chance to lick my hands I would have, but what would the others think? As we came down to the last rooster, I opened its mouth and stuck the sharp edge of the blade right down its throat with hate and anger, knowing that the blood was a contract and the killing would destroy someone else's life. I came out of that secret meeting feeling giddy with power, wicked energy all over me, and celebrating the victory that was about to take place. Sometime later we heard that the house of our enemies caught fire and burned to the ground. They became homeless and had nowhere to stay. I knew they learned a hard lesson not to mess with fire, because we were fire. The drawing to the dark side seemed to be getting stronger. All this made me hang out more with my friends and brought on more drinking, more women, more clubbing, and now sex. I started to get a hunger for the club scene. I was living like my dad without realizing it. The life that I hated him for had now become my life. The curse upon my father had not only reached me but was now taking over my brothers as well. My mother couldn't do anything to stop it. We were out of control and headed in the direction my father had once lived. Now she had 4 sons that reminded her of the abusive drinking husband she had lost. Old doors and wounds had been reopened. Graveyard ritual. Fall came and with it a chill wind blew through the Bronx, forcing its residents to layer up and lean into the cold air as they made their way down the noisy city streets. For me, autumn meant one thing: the approach of Halloween, my favorite holiday. Halloween is the most mysterious, carnal, and devilish holiday of them all. I always laughed at those who celebrated Halloween by changing their identity for one night, and those who claimed to be witches and warlocks because they danced around in front of open fires set in a field or forest beneath a full moon. To me they were fools, like little kids playing with matches, not realizing the thing they played with had the power to kill. I knew the real meaning of this black holiday. Halloween is the night to have the most demonic powers available to use to kill and destroy those you hate. The week before Halloween, I prepared for a special assignment to do just that: inflict suffering and death on 3 people I was contracted to destroy. That Wednesday night, Saint Ilya, the demon spirit that owns the gates of the cemetery, instructed me to visit the tombs of those who had died recently so I could capture their spirits. My second godmother in the religion, a one-of-a-kind witch, met up with me and we walked the 15 blocks to the walled cemetery. No one lurked about as we approached the wrought iron gates of the cemetery. As usual, the gates were locked after sundown, so my godmother waited by the gates while I paid my respect with 21 pennies, then climbed the wall to leap over. As I stood on the wall, I gazed into a sea of concrete tombstones and was in awe. The statues of different saints distinguished different parts of the cemetery. Even the place of the dead was beautiful. I roamed the tombs. It was fresh graves I sought, not old ones, graves only weeks old. Directed by Saint Ilya, I visited 3 graves that night, 2 that had committed suicide and 1 that was shot to death. My assignment was to take those spirits home to use them against my enemies, and those people would die the same way the ones in the graves had died. It was cold. The ground of those tombs felt like ice as I knelt before each one and carried out the contract, using the pieces of white candles, a cigar, and white rum I had brought. "John, is everything okay?" my godmother croaked in a hoarse voice from the cemetery gates. Yeah, everything's okay. Just leave me alone." "I'm doing my thing," I said, irritated that she might raise a disturbance. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay," she replied. "What a stubborn person I brought with me tonight," I muttered under my breath. But my irritation soon gave way to excitement as the demon spirit led me from grave to grave. I shivered. I didn't know whether I was cold because of the weather or because I was surrounded by the dead that night. My veins pumped with adrenaline as I realized that in just a few days Halloween would be at my door. I was going to go out and have a good time with my boys, my enemies long forgotten. Halloween rendezvous. That weekend, on Halloween night, I catered to the demons at my home, set up all my witchcraft spells against those I hated, and then got dressed up and went to meet my 2 friends at the neighborhood club in Parkchester. We were too cool to be dressed in costumes. Instead, I wore a nice pair of jeans, a white shirt, and had my hair slicked back to perfection. We could hear the music pumping loudly as we approached the club on foot. "Hey, John, you gonna meet some cuties tonight?" my buddy Jose said, nudging me with his elbow. "I can feel it, bro. I can feel the vibes." "Oh yeah." I grinned back at him. "Maybe I'll try to find one for both of yous too." We laughed as we paid the cover charge and stepped past the bouncer into the darkened club. Inside, the scene was electric, with a few hundred people all dressed out in crazy costumes and the dance floor packed with bodies gyrating to the salsa beat. The atmosphere was right. I could feel the eerie Halloween chill in the air, and I knew the spirits wanted to communicate with me. I didn't know whether to party that night or look for victims. I saw her in the corner, a beautiful girl in a short, black, elegant witch costume with long black hair and pale skin. She had the face of an angel, and instantly I knew I had to have her. Whoever she was, she didn't have a problem saying no, as I saw guy after guy get shot down when they asked her to dance. But somehow I knew it would be different for me, even though I was shy about approaching her. "Go to her," a voice in my head commanded. "She's yours." I sauntered across the room and stood right next to her at the bar. Her back was turned to me as she talked with her girlfriend. "Would you like to dance?" I asked over the music. She turned around, and a slow smile spread across her beautiful face. "I would love to," she said. As we danced on the dance floor, we kept gazing at each other and smiling. "What's your name?" I said, leaning my head down close to her ear. "I'm Mari. I live in Brooklyn." "Well, you're a long way from home, Mari, but I'm glad you decided to come to the Bronx tonight." "I'm John." I hope we can get to know each other better. We'll see, she said, tossing her hair with a coy smile. We kept dancing all night, and at one point I felt the spirits telling me to kiss her. Without warning, I leaned over and kissed her full on the mouth, and she went into shock. She even stopped dancing for a few seconds, at a loss for words. I did it for shock effect and it worked. As I leaned back, I gave her a devilish smile. When the club closed, I walked Mari to her car. We stood there for a few moments, both caught up in the mysterious night and not wanting it to end. How can I stay in contact with you? I asked her finally. She wrote her number on a piece of paper and gave it to me. I nodded, memorizing the numbers as soon as I read them. I'll stay in touch. And thanks for the evening. I had a wonderful night. As Mari got into her car, I closed the door for her and watched her drive away. Walking on my way home into the night, I felt mystical, excited, and I was already planning my next move.